Hey guys, welcome to another Sunday Superversive live stream. I am your host, Benjamin Wheeler, and today I'm here with Anthony Marquetta, as always. We don't really have a subject for the stream. I'm not feeling 100%. I've got stuff going on, and I don't really want to talk about it because, quite frankly, YouTube doesn't want us talking about it unless it's quite for a certain side, which I do not think is compatible with the Christian life. Instead, we're going to talk about whatever. Spy X Family. I'm enjoying it. It's literally the only anime I've been watching that's coming out this season, which I understand to not be any sort of exceptional. Um, yeah, the characters are fun. I sort of have a predilection for violence, so you're the female wife wannabe type of character obsession over violence and violent delights
Yeah.
is something I'm
So
enjoying. But yeah, it's not
several
bad.
months ago, iPatch Wolf recommended the manga version of Spy Family, and I read it on his recommendation, and I've been following it now. So for several months, so not quite before it became cool, but also before I didn't get into it because of the anime. So there's that.
Hmm.
Uh, so I had been keeping an eye on this, and also when I heard that Wit Studio was going to be one of the groups pairing up to do it. Wit Studio did the absolute best anime of whatever season it was that came when it came out, which I don't remember. Uh, they did the anime Great Pretender. That was it, which was amazing. It kind of the ending of it was a little bit of a mess, but overall, just a really amazing anime. Um, so when I heard that they were going to be one of the groups working on Spy Family, I was like super excited. And honestly, this adaptation is like a dream adaptation.
Oh yeah.
This is serious. It's like about as good as it could be. Even the stuff they're adding, like they're adding little moments and scenes and things, and they're all great. The OP is great. The ED is great.
Yep.
Uh, Absolutely awesome. Today's episode followed my favorite story in the manga, which was only 5 chapters in, believe it or not. And I think it's a testament to the fact that what's his name, Endo, something Endo. I want to say Tetsuya Endo, but
Chicken
I think that's
Tendo.
wrong. Yeah, the creator of Spy Family. His name is Endo, at
Mm.
least. Remember that. I can't remember his first name, but uh, Endo, I think, was already an experienced manga creator when he made Spy Family. So it kind of starts off like running on all cylinders. And I think it's pretty clear that he has a very clear vision of what he wants the series to be. And he very much holds to it in from like chapter 1, it's very much in that vein, and there's a lot of good stuff coming. So far it's a bi-weekly manga, which I think is a good thing. I think that the increased time generally is good in terms of like story crafting, in terms of getting the artwork done. I am very much in favor of giving creators the time to make good quality stuff.
Yep.
In fact, I think that it's actually probably the biggest flaw of Shonen Jump is that stories come out weekly and manga creators get burnt out. Giving them that time is a really big deal. Even Araki, who was a machine, eventually left Shonen Jump more or less for that reason.
Hmm. I understand he
So,
also wanted to have more control over the product as well.
that I don't know. I have his
Uh,
book, Manga in Theory and Practice, or something like that, which, by the way, is an awesome book.
it
Highly
is.
recommend. Yeah. Uh,
It's a good book for creation
really,
in general of
yes,
products
it
and
is.
whatnot.
Really fascinating book. One of the things that is so interesting about that book to me is just how much of a business it is to Araki. Like, don't get me wrong, it's very much a work of art. Like, he is
Hmm.
absolutely trying to create something that's quality, but he is always aware of like the market decisions involved in anything he's doing,
Yep.
right? Like, never not in his mind. That's the whole reason, like the whole JoJo conceit. Like, he freely admits, everybody's like, it's such an original idea and it's so cool. Like, it wasn't an original idea. It wasn't original at all. His main character wasn't very popular, so he killed him off because he didn't really have a choice at the time.
Yep.
Like that was the reason that he did it. That was explicitly, and he's like very open about this.
Yep.
Like he's not embarrassed about it all, and why should he be? You know, it was a business decision.
Yep. And it was a good
It
decision too. Like Jonathan Joestar, I'm actually a fan of him, but it's like, yeah, no, he had one thing going for him, and that's it.
it was the right thing to do, definitely. That,
Yep.
by the way, is the reason that Joseph Joestar looks so similar to Jonathan. Araki said that he intentionally made them look similar, so when people read the manga, they would know that it was the same manga.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and part two is a huge improvement overall over part one. Don't get me wrong, I like part one. I think it can be even a little bit underrated. Uh, but it's definitely better. Like,
Yes.
no question. The
It made
one
me
thing
fall in
that,
love with the series.
yeah, the one thing I would say, and I think is fair, that part one has over part two, is the villain. Dio is an all-time classic villain, and they take the
Mm-hmm.
time to set up a with Jonathan. So Cars is good. Don't get me wrong. I like Cars. I think he works very well as a villain. I think he sometimes gets a little bit of shit because JoJo's is so known for its excellent villains. Uh, that I think that Cars does come off as a little bit underwhelming comparatively,
Yeah.
but he's a fine villain. However, Dio is, an all-time classic for a reason, and mainly because he really did put in the work to set Dio up as the character. Like, in a weird way, despite the fact that Dio is pure evil, and Dio is clearly just, he's a monster, he has basically no redeeming qualities,
Mm-hmm.
there is actually, like, more depth to Dio than people, I think, sometimes give him credit for.
Yep.
Like, there are layers to the character. Like, he's not just being a jerk to Jonathan, for example, for no reason. Like, there is a motivation at the heart of it.
Yeah.
And the motivation there isn't, it's not a motivation that makes you like Dio, which would be
Right.
lazy. Even a motivation that makes you feel sorry for Dio, but it's a motivation that makes what Dio's doing not random.
Right. He isn't just like evil for the sake of evil or whatever. And he's not just some spoiled brat or insert stock character here or, oh, really, he's the one hurting all along. It's like, no, he's a jerk. He is an evil, evil individual. He will not redeem himself. He will not, decide that, anyone but himself matters. He will continuously be evil. And I think people kind of miss out on that. But it's not like a bad thing. Like, you can have pure evil characters with no redeeming qualities and have them developed. But the thing is that you have to give them not reasons to be evil, but like the method to their madness. It's like, what's Dio's method? Well, he wants immortality. He wants power. He wants people to respect him and look up to him. Like, he wants love in a way. But that doesn't make him some sort of like, oh, I can redeem him sort of thing. It just means that, he's willing to be uh, a jerk about it. Not anything crazy special or like, wowee, it, he can be, love can save him. It's like, no. Like, love is inherent to his malfunctioning moral center.
Right, exactly. And that malfunctioning moral center, like, we see where it comes from. It's abuse. People look at. I get why people kind of get tired of like abuse as an explanation for villainy, but honestly, like, I'm trying to think of how to say this exactly. There are good ways and bad ways to do it, like everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And Iraqi gets. Uh, the other thing too about part one is that I've mentioned this before, but for all of the flaws of part one, it does have some. Part one is the reason that the ending of part three is so good. Like, Part 3 does not set up Dio at all. He's like a shadowy background figure. And don't get me wrong, he's established as a threat. But
Mm-hmm.
the reason that the ending of Part 1 feels so, like, operatic in scale is because with the context of Part 1, he's not just a threat. There's, like, this family history that is coming to a head after this long, epic adventure. There's this whole
Yep.
background finally culminating in this moment. Uh, which is what makes it so really brilliant.
Oh yeah.
And
It's just good
Part
writing.
3, their individual section, I think the sum of its parts is greater than the individual sections.
Mm.
I've said this before, but I feel like the ending of Part 3 is so good that it kind of makes you forget that the rest of it is a bit of a mess.
Yeah. Like there's whole sections like but that you can just ignore and you wouldn't even realize that you ignored it. Like up until like say the
Yeah.
Darby brothers, you can safely ignore most of the Egyptian glory gods and pretty much all of the assassins that Dio sends after them. Like
Yes.
not even exaggerating.
On the other hand, everything in the anime, at least from the Darby brothers to the ending, so in other words, most of Egypt,
Yeah.
is actually like that goes Darby brothers, and then I think it goes the Iggy fight, which is low key one of like the top 3 fights in that series. By the way,
Yep.
people sleep on that fight. It's actually like an
It's
unbelievable
amazing.
fight scene. Um, the Iggy fight, and then they have like a little bit of a break where they have the little video game battle, which is just sort of down
Which is the
because they're
second Darby brother.
yeah, the second Darby brother, which is just I think a bit of, it was
Eh.
supposed to be a little bit of a
Yeah.
you get into the really intense stuff. However, I do think it was pretty weak.
It was.
Like
It was just like a
Joseph,
repeat of the first one, really.
yeah, and Joseph is just cheating in a really obvious way. They even kind of call him out on it, where they're like, "Yo, your brother would not have fallen for this trick. It's really simple."
Right.
uh,
We're surprised it worked.
and
You had us down dead to rights.
yeah, uh, let's see. And then after that, there's the Vanilla Ice fight, which is when they kill off Avdol
Yep.
and Diggy, which is
Yep.
incredible. Just scene. And then you get the
Iggy.
final fight.
Absol.
Yeah. And then you get the final fight with Dio, where Kakyoin dies, and somehow Joseph doesn't die in probably the most bullshit non-death of the series.
Yeah, it's pretty BS. No, I can't. I'm not gonna defend that.
Don't get me wrong, I appreciate that Joseph survived, and I don't mind that he did, but the way they did it, Joseph was just like, just put his blood back in, and that'll bring him back to life. And
Right.
I'm like, but be dead anyway? Like, it's not magic that kills you if you don't have blood, it's the lack of blood.
Star Platinum's keeping his heart pumping. It's fine. It's fine. And then
No. I heard explosions. Are you okay? Ben! Guys, we lost Ben. I don't see him popping up in the live
yeah,
stream
there we go.
either. There we are.
Yeah, my thing stopped working for some reason.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of the, we've talked a lot about the JoJo stuff already.
Yeah.
So, moving from that back to Spy Family. What makes Spy Family great, I think, is very simple. Spy Family is a brilliant concept. And all they really need to do with that concept is not mess it up. Like, do what you expect them to do in a mostly entertaining way. And that's exactly what you get.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wouldn't call it the world's most creative show in terms of, like, subverting expectations with storytelling or anything like that, but
Right.
when you have a base idea as good as Spy Family, you absolutely do not need that.
Yeah. Like it's got a small character base with a few really good side characters, and that's all you need for the premise of the story. Everyone else is basically
Exactly.
either a one-shot character or the main villain, if there even is one. I don't know. I haven't read
There's
the
a main
manga.
villain, but he plays a very small part in the story.
Is he that one guy who was defeated in the first bit?
No, actually, he is Desmond. His name is. He's the guy. So
Oh, we've met
someone
him
to.
before.
I think you did once. Yeah, in the show, I think you did.
Hmm.
So to summarize for the viewers who don't know the plot of Spy Family, so the plot of Spy Family is that the main character, Twilight, is his code name, and he is a spy working for, basically the fictional equivalent of like East Berlin or something. I don't even know if he's in East Berlin or West Berlin. It's like West Alice and
They
West
have
Anya, but
they have a
yeah,
they have a spy ring that's as good as anything East Berlin had. Like holy cow, these
yeah.
guys don't quit.
I can't remember if he's part of the East or the West. It really isn't relevant though. So he's part of the spy ring, and he gets a new assignment where he needs to figure out the plans of like some evil, industrial magnate who's at the head of the opposing country called Desmond Dross, I think,
Hmm.
if I have that right, or like something like that.
Hmm.
So Desmond is his last name, I think. Doesn't matter. So, however, he is an extremely private person. So they conclude that the only way they can infiltrate him is that he needs to have a child who can get into the prestigious private school his son goes to, and then become an imperial scholar at that school, so he could get to the big fancy party where all of the parents of the imperial scholars meet, and he can like listen in on the plans there. And they've apparently in the manga, and I don't recall if they do all of this background stuff in the anime, probably because they've added some stuff, but in the
Hmm.
manga, like, they make clear that he has considered every other option and that this is absolutely the best way to do it. So in order for him to do this, he needs to get a fake wife and a fake child and get her into the school and then have her do well in the school. So the child he adopts is named Anya, and secretly she was part of a government initiative, like experimentation group, and now she can read people's minds. Though he doesn't know that. He has no idea she can read lines. He just thinks that she is kind of smart. Uh, and the fake wife he finds, as it turns out, she is actually an assassin. And the reason that she agrees to marry him is because people are starting to look into single women without husbands of her age. She's like 27. And, they're saying that the secret police is looking into it and it's interfering with her assassin work. So she needs to fake marry somebody so that people stop looking into her personal life. And Twilight, the spy, has no clue that she is an assassin. Or the assassin has no clue that he is a spy. And Anya knows that the daughter, knows that she is an assassin and knows that Twilight is a spy, but they don't know that she knows. So you have this complex web of everybody lying to everyone else, and the only person who actually knows everything that's going on is the little girl, and nobody knows that she knows. So you can imagine this is already a premise with so many opportunities for fun stuff that you could do with these stories, and really all they need to do with a premise like this is like not mess it up. You're expecting certain things out of the story,
Yep.
right? You're expecting the Anya needs to do well in school and she uses her mind reading to do it. Twilight needs to fake being a family even though he's never had a family, so you're expecting some heartwarming scenes. Yours
Mm-hmm.
assassin work, like she has this conflict over is she too violent to be a mother. Also, you'll see as the anime goes on that Yor is like the general explanation for how Yor can do what she does is that like just built different. That
Yeah.
Yor has like the awesome super strength.
Well, she casually
He's like
mentions that she broke her brother's ribs while hugging him, and
yes,
it's like,
and
well,
like it gets increasingly absurd as the series progresses in a pretty funny way. There's an incredible scene where like there is a female spy who is working with Twilight and she's in love with him. And Twilight, of course, is not in love with her, and she sees Yor as, like, a challenge. So she challenges Yor to a tennis match. The scene is actually incredible. Like, I'm not even gonna spoil it. It's so good. You'll see when you get there. But I think you'll get there in season 1. I don't think it's that late in. But anyway, like, you're expecting certain things. You're expecting Twilight to go on spy missions that are cool, and you get that. You're expecting Yor to do cool assassin work, you get that. And you're expecting heartwarming, found family type stuff, and you get that. And it executes everything well. It's a good story, well told, kind of thing. The humor is good, the gags are good, the characters are great. Anya is one of the more realistic little girl characters that I've seen in this sort of story. Like, she acts like a little girl, which I really appreciate. Uh, there's just a lot of really well done details in the story. There's a definite attention to detail. The new characters that are introduced too, like, it gets increasingly convoluted as it goes on, but it works because it's always being played at least partially for comedy. Like, Yor has I will say my one criticism of the show that I have always maintained is a legitimate criticism, is that I do not buy for a second that Twilight does not know that Yor is an assassin.
Yeah, I could see that. Like, it's
Like, they
like, how in the world did she even enter his house and he doesn't already know what's all in her boxes? Like, she goes to the bathroom or goes to like lock the door, and he's already knows what's all in it. It's like, like it's
exactly, especially because Twilight is known for, like, having all of this info. You know,
right.
it's
It's
like a thing with his character, and they play this. It works to great effect in later scenes. Like, Yor's brother comes to visit her, and to spoil a little bit of it, though it's not really a spoiler because the joke is how it plays out. But Yor's brother, Twilight immediately figures out, just based on, like, probability, he's probably a member of the secret police. He's like, okay, so he works for whatever. The fact that he works here means statistically it's likely he was recruited for the secret police. Then within five
he's a
minutes of meeting
glowy.
him,
He's a
yeah,
glowy. Disgusting.
within like 5 minutes of meeting him, Twilight's like, yep, secret police. He confirms it. It's just it's kind of insane to me that Twilight has this ability to figure this out about her brother based on next to no information.
Right.
And completely accurate, by the way, 100% dead on.
Right.
And he does not know that Yor is part of an assassin ring. Like you said, even if you go like, oh, well, the Garden, which is the organization that hires Yor, is really, really good at cleaning up after her, how has he not searched all of her boxes?
Right.
Like,
How does he
it's not...
not know that the garden exists if he's the spy? It's
So,
mm,
they mentioned that briefly. I think Frankie, who was that guy who's like the Q of the show, like, he's the weapons
yeah.
guy. Yeah. Uh, Frankie says to Twilight that he believes the garden exists, and Twilight, like, brushes it off as just a rumor.
Right.
I don't know if he's done that yet, but that happens at one point. He says to Twilight, like,
They haven't
could
really
be a
mentioned
member
the
of
garden.
and Twilight goes, come on, Frankie, the garden's just a myth. Yeah. There's no such thing. But
Frankie, haha, the
just that
garden's
he
a myth.
walks
Stop talking about it. Haha, it's a myth. Haha. So, I guess.
Just the fact that Yor brings the weapons into the house, which he does canonically. This is
Yes.
a scene, and it's a funny scene, by the way.
It's a great scene.
I'm not criticizing the scene, the vacuum. It made me laugh. But where, like, Anya wants to go and look into the box, and he's like, no, please, that's my stuff. And then you can see, like, Yor, and she's gonna find all of my weapons, and Anya freaks out.
Right. It's like, she's going to find all my weapons and enough poison to kill an elephant. She's like, ah!
Yeah. and Anya's just kind of like, Jesus, what?
I'm not going to play with that. I do find it interesting because it's a pretty interesting sort of thing. Like, there is, how do I want to put it? Like, I don't know. From what I've seen from other people and like interactions with stuff, like, if glowies are dealing with normal people, fetties and all that jazz, like they tend to do pretty well because normal people aren't suspicious and believe that this random guy who has a selfie with Donald Trump is a Fed. They don't believe that specifically, but it's like once you like start looking into it, it's like no. If this guy was close enough to be within 100 feet of a president, he's in something, and I'm talking about somebody very real who may or may not be wiretapping this conversation. And it's like they tend to out themselves to people who are on the lookout for it, and they don't even intend to. Like it's just kind of like, oh, well, I want to talk about this. This is pretty cool. This will build my trust. But it's like kind of like how a lot of groups have like blackmail on each other. It's like, oh well, if they have blackmail on me and I have blackmail on them, we can all trust each other, right? You know, it's the same sort of thing. Like at some point, if he can do that, and like to the brother, who I was already suspecting was up to something, in the sense of like his sister is an assassin, no way, and she's a trustworthy one, no way they didn't tap her brother for it, for something. You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of
Yeah,
weird.
and I actually I love her brother in the story. He's hilarious. Uh, they have this weird. He has this weird pseudo incestuous relationship with Yor that most of the time in anime drives me nuts. But in the movie is or not in the movie, sorry, in the story is actually like in context really funny. Just the way that they handle it.
I mean, I guess I'll look forward to it. Mm.
It's very yeah. I'm trying to figure out like it's so how should I say this?
Kind of cringy but funny.
It yeah, it's intentionally cringy. Like you could tell the reason the joke is there is not fan service. I'll put it to you that way.
Okay,
There
good.
is no fan service associated with it at all. That's not why it's in there. It is in there because it makes his interactions with Twilight and Yor just incredibly awkward and funny. That's why it's there. If it were for fan service, then I would hate it, and I would probably even recommend people away from Spy
Yeah.
for that matter. I would go that far because I've been on the record as saying that I don't approve of and do not make excuses for anime. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like as oh, like the hardcore weebs do.
Right.
The most that I will say is that like a show like Gurren Lagann, I would recommend, as John C. Wright once did in a discussion I saw. I would recommend that if you have trouble with lust and that fictional characters, you know, float your boat. Don't watch Gurren Lagann. But if not, then it's a good show. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Gurren Lagann, which again I think thematically uses its nudity, uh, is about as far as I will go.
Yeah. It's interesting because
And
Kill la
even
Kill
yeah,
does have things to say about it, but it's not like people kind of like use it as an excuse, not as something to think about. And yes, some of it isn't commentary. Most of it is not commentary. It's not really commentary except when they're dealing with their mother,
right.
which who is
And I would say
explicitly,
in that case,
hold on,
more of
who
a
is,
yeah,
yeah, like their mother is explicitly an older woman who uses who exploits her daughters to get power. That's what it is, and it's something that happens in real life, and it's kind of like commentary in there. If it was portrayed as something that the daughters themselves welcome instead of as Satsuki does, like just bear it, and it's like, yes, I must do this for power myself, or as Ryoko does, which is to basically run away from it whenever possible, especially from the freaks at Nudist Beach, uh, who even I call freaks. And I'm half naked right now. You can't even tell. You couldn't even tell. How does it make you feel, Anthony? But
improved my life. Thank you.
thank you. Good, 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 good. I just wanted to tell people my power level at that point. But it's like it does something very specific within the show, and then when it's not required, it goes away and is uncommented on. It's just presented. It's interesting, but it's it's not something I'd ever do for anything I'm doing right now.
Yeah, I would say with
Yeah.
Kill, my advice to people would be that if you have any sort of like problems with less that a show like Kill la Kill would turn you on, which sounds weird and awkward, but I'm being very direct about it because
Yeah.
hentai thing that absolutely is a problem with
Yep.
people. So I'm being serious as I say this. I'm not saying it as a joke.
Right.
Then I would
If
not
we can't
recommend
talk
it.
about it, we
I do
can't
not
solve the
have that
problem.
issue. Cartoons don't fit for me. Exactly. With that said, I do think, I think it's a good thing that Kill la Kill exists. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, I don't think it's bad that a show like Kill la
Yeah. I think
One of the, we've discussed
I do
before,
appreciate that.
Radio is,
Hmm? Sorry, keep going.
yeah, I was just going to say about Ragyo, like, we've discussed this before about Ragyo, but Ragyo is truly one of the all-time great villains, probably in anything, because I've always said that what makes Ragyo great is that you can kind of subdivide a villain into two types of villains. You have villains who are hateful because they are personally vindictive, and this is a villain like, I'm going to use an example you'll hate, but it's a good example. Umbridge from Harry Potter. We don't hate Umbridge because she is famously in the story. Everybody despises her, right? More than Voldemort. But Umbridge doesn't really have that much power in the story. She's a teacher. She has power in a school. But what makes her hateful is she abuses children.
Yes.
And she does it in ways just loathsome and get under your skin. Voldemort represents the other end of that. He is a world-ending threat that makes him an obstacle to overcome. A well-done example of that would be Thanos. Right? Now, Thanos abuses his children as well, but we barely really see it, to be honest, so that's not really the main point of Thanos.
They talk about it more than we
This is
see
a
it.
well-done villain. He works.
Yeah.
He works in Endgame, but generally, like, as a villain, he is a world-ending threat. Ragyo is such a great villain because she really encapsulates both. She is both a threat that is powerful enough to threaten the entire world that you absolutely need to stop, and she is personally hateful to the characters that we like and are following.
Yes.
I would also argue with Ragyo. I wish I still had a copy of this article. My sister wrote it for Superversive Sci-Fi years ago. It was actually an excellent article. She actually wrote a defense of the scene where Ragyo abuses Satsuki.
Yeah.
So, in their infamous, I should say, really, an infamous scene in Kill la Kill that a lot of fans turned on, actually, where Satsuki is shown taking a bath, and Ragyo, her mother, gets in the bath with her and clearly is molesting her. And they zoom in on Satsuki's face as it's happening.
She is not liking it.
It is an unbelievable... Yeah, it is an unbelievably uncomfortable scene to watch. Like, it is super disturbing to the point where, like, I honestly, when I rewatch the show, like, I tend to skip past it. But the scene is brilliant. It is a brilliant scene. The whole point of the scene is that you personally now despise Ragyo. Like, only a psychopath would have any sort of, would not despise Ragyo at that scene. And there's also the fact that as they zoom in on Satsuki, the really ingenious thing that they do is that Satsuki is clearly she doesn't like it, like you said, like she's clearly uncomfortable, but she's also clearly turned on in the scene. And the uncomfortable part of the scene is that, especially a guy who is watching it, you are also probably on some level being turned on against your will, meaning in a small way, you're kind of in the situation of the character, which is the point.
Yep.
You're supposed to feel how deeply uncomfortable it is. Like, you're not like the fact that it turns you on, it's not meant to be something that you like. It's meant to make you feel vaguely guilty. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is, like, that's the genius of the scene. That is the point of the scene, is that, you get out of that scene, go, that person is a monster, I want her to die.
Yep.
You totally understand Satsuki's motivations.
Yep.
That Satsuki kill her is immediately not something that you need to sell me on. Like, 100% you are on Satsuki's side. even though she has been the villain of the show. Which is another reason that scene was necessary. Satsuki had been set up as the antagonist,
Mm-hmm.
and a strong antagonist, too. Ryuko as the main character, so in order to get us on her side, we really need to see that Rakio is the villain. Like, she is the person who needs to go, not Satsuki. So, and my sister actually, like, wrote an article defending that scene. It's a good article, I wish I had it, but that was her main argument, and I agree with it. I think that that's, was a really well done scene, but that's kind of the essence of Kill la Kill in a nutshell, right? There's more there than the eye. Like, there are things going on in Kill la Kill. I'm not saying that a scene like that is needed in every sort of story, but I'm also saying that the fact that it exists in this story isn't itself a bad thing.
Right. And I do appreciate that, things like Spy X Family doesn't have anything like that, just because it's
100%.
it just would not be proper for it all. Um, and I think ultimately it'll make Spy X Family the best anime of the season. Not that there's much competition. Thinking about some of these things, it's like anime culture has ossified quite a bit, and I think that um, things will change relatively soon, just because it's like either things must change or it's just going to be like, well, Attack on Titan's done. What's the mainstream anime that Netflix can ruin as long as Netflix survives? Which it won't for much longer, God willing. Um, it's
Yeah, really.
it's
So, for the record, I am okay with anime culture ossifying collapsing. It was always messed up and disturbed. The fact
Yep.
that people like Gigak and Jeff were leaders, quote unquote, of the culture, meant that it was always, even Digibro for that matter, who was a degenerate nutcase,
Yes.
it was moving on borrowed time.
Yep. And it's like yeah, and
Good
it's
riddance as far as I am concerned.
and a lot of these guys have paid the cost of their.
Now, with that said, this isn't to say anime. Yeah, I was gonna say this isn't to say that anime is going anywhere.
Right.
Anime seems to be doing quite well right now.
Yes.
But whatever the culture around it is doing, just the whole weeb culture, let it die.
Yeah. And I think that hopefully, like, especially with times getting harder, people will be unable to, um, hide from what's going on as much as they used to. Because that's kind of what people are doing now. They're hiding from the fact that a large part of our society is just kind of falling apart. Um, people aren't trusting each other. Things are getting a little bit crazier. But I think the more people can't hide from it, the better off everyone's going to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, stones are being turned, and anime is just, obviously one small subset of it. My attachment to anime has never been through the culture, which I've never appreciated, never liked. That's what you see in a lot of those people like you referred.
Mm-hmm.
For example, Dejiro attached himself to that culture. And, he's a sad story, really.
Yes.
It's a very sad story, honestly. Like, he's really a tragedy because Dejiro was a genius. He was a legitimate genius. He was a brilliant analyst.
Yep.
One of the best. But, and that is not, like, that's not something that I'm willing to brush off as like, oh, it's not something that matters. No, we need those sorts of people in culture. But he had these personal demons and flaws that were enabled by the culture that he ran to, which was anime.
Yep.
And they enabled those flaws, and they enabled those personal demons, and it ruined his life, essentially.
Yep.
And whatever he claimed he is now, happy, sad, whatever. by it.
Right. I agree. It's he's lost a lot of what he had before, and it wasn't that good. But in comparison to the past, it'd be like me sort of giving up on the Pinkerton's Ghost and Superversive crew. Like I've been public in saying that there really isn't a Superversive movement right now. A lot of authors are still working for it, but like I don't see anyone really talking about it. Well, I think about that. Well, what can I do for this? What can I do for that? There's a lot to it, but I think that it's not something that's permanently gone. But with some of the stuff that happens when you make some of the choices that were made by Digibro and others, like it's just gone. Like there's no repairing anything of what you're doing, even if like for him to not repair, to change again would literally require a come to Jesus moment. He would have to become a Christian. He would have to become born again. He would have to give up his sins and accept Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior. Like that's it. That's all there is to it. Like he can try to
Yeah,
evolve
exactly.
like he has in the past, but it will never work because he'll always be fundamentally choosing the lie over the truth.
Digibro is sad too because unlike Jeff, there was like a kernel of I want to say integrity, honesty, whatever you want to call it, or
Mm-hmm.
Digibro, where he would do things that would not be the most popular choice and would go against the mold
Yep.
and be willing to do it because he was right. And Jeff had none of that, right?
Right.
Like Jeff is he's essentially a corporate sneeze bag. And I'm not saying that Digibro, was this person of integrity. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying that you could see in Digibro almost teetering on an edge, right?
Right.
He could have flipped away.
Now I'm
Jeff is more
starting
like
to change up how I talk about people. Like I'm not gonna say like XYZ is so close to becoming Christian. Honestly, they're very far from being Christian until they become a Christian, because it doesn't matter how close guys like Stefan Molyneux are. He hasn't made the choice yet. So it kind of
right, but
uh, like with
the
did
flip side is you get the Rushmans of the world.
right. You're absolutely right. Uh,
It can happen.
it could happen. I'm not saying that it won't happen. I'm just saying that it hasn't happened, and I don't like talking about like what people could be with this stuff, just because it's like honestly, no. Digibro was always kind of crazy enough to destroy himself, and he did
Yeah.
it.
Oh, you're
Um,
100% right. But
yeah.
he was always worth listening to because he would say things that like he wasn't afraid to go against the grain. Like when he did his Sword Art Online video, for example, first off, it is criminal and still unfair to me. Like it still actually low key bothers me. Not enough to do anything on this because it's not about it. It still low key bothers me that they tried to mimic the whole Ichigo's contribution to the Sword
Right.
Art Online discussion, which is something Jeff did. That was something very much Jeff did, and like that was really, really slimy. Jeff tries to take credit as being the Sword Art Online guy, which is literally a straight up lie. Like that's just not true.
Mm.
That's not what happened. Digibro was the guy who started the backlash against Sword Art Online. And incidentally, Digibro's videos on Sword Art Online are so much more substantive than Jeff's. It's embarrassing to compare the two. Like it actually makes it hard to watch Jeff's videos after watching Digibro's videos
Mm-hmm.
because Jeff's are just so substantive. But anyway, like he had that core where he would say things, for example, that were against feminism, and that's not an easy thing necessarily to do. Not that he was right wing; he was never right wing. But Digibro was always somebody that to me was worth watching because it's like maybe there's something there, right? Like
Right.
maybe he'll come forward. Jeff, I was never worth watching. Jeff was more like a golem to me.
Yeah. I think
Slimy little creature.
yeah. But to move on, one of the things that I kind of hope will come out of it is that there'll be an expansion of interest and an expansion of people willing to sort of like branch outside genres. A big thing with that is things like, we've been sort of talking about Arthurian myth recently. I think that that would be a much more worthy spent time than some of the stuff people get up to now. Uh, Especially since it does have a lot of cultural relevance to the things that we're experiencing. Um, One of the things that you if we were to just I don't want to talk about Digibro forever, but if we were to talk about it, is that he failed to slay his dragons.
Yep.
Whatever he had, he was not a puissant enough knight. He did not have what it took to be the champion that he needed to be for it, and a large part of that is his sin nature never being conquered by salvation, um, among other things. And it's his porn addiction, his inability to maintain proper relationships, and other things like that. You know, as much as I don't want to talk about this guy forever. You know, it really is just watching this guy, get destroyed, just like I'm getting destroyed in this game. Holy cow! I hate this level. Uh, and and that's all there is to it. That could be any one of us. I believe artists, especially, have tendencies towards, shall we say, Lord Byron's disease, um, and by that I mean sexual promiscuity and exaggeration, as well as just kind of malaise and emotional damage and stuff like that. While uh, you know, some people might call it gamma syndrome. I don't believe that every emotional problem comes from being a gamma. I have known many alphas and bravos and deltas and omegas, especially omegas, who have had emotional problems. The thing with the higher ups, the alphas and the bravos, they don't even know how to deal with them. Usually, it comes out as abuse. If an alpha slaps his kid because he's mouthing off to him, he's still acting like an alpha. That's going to sound weird, right? But it's in character. The Bravo, if he's focusing on others, that he's neglecting his family. The Delta, working too hard. The Omega, this the simmering anger that bursts out at intervals. Like there's in the I don't even need to talk about the gammas. They might not even ever say anything abusive, but they're so weak it doesn't matter. It's there's narcissism there. The fact that Trump's kids turned out as well as they did is a miracle, straight up. It's grace from God. Uh, the the choices that people make here, with their lives, does kind of interfere with it. Like right now, the reason why I'm feeling unwell, and I'm sort of getting over it now that we're actually doing it, is my sister's doing something I don't approve of. Getting something happen to you in a war zone isn't the same as martyrdom. Now she's been to Africa and other things, New Guinea, which honestly New Guinea is a wasteland. Why should I worry about this? It's her choice. Well, we're part of a family. We have these things and they interact with each other. My status as her brother has things that affect her. She has things that affect me. We're not unique individuals in a bubble. The same way that if I suddenly start taking out my anger on Anthony and Ken, I am interacting with them in a way that is negative and abusive. The trauma that Digibro experienced, where no one treated him like a man and his parents refused to engage with him as a man, ended with him becoming a transgender woman. It was obvious. It was there. The plot lines were there. All he had to do was to take them.
Yeah.
With other
It was
artists,
actually almost comical how easy it is.
the
It was like how easy it was.
yeah,
Digi's downfall.
Yeah, it just happened. Like it was there. It was going through. He was surrounded by enablers and so on. Like when you don't have people who are Christian telling you to be good and moral and true and a man and all this other stuff, it turns out you have no ability to properly uh, handle the world around you, especially as a guy. I imagine that women go through their own version, but especially for artists, like artists with sexual sin, it's like, well, if you don't have anyone keeping you grounded and not lusting after your next paramour, and away from pornography, and away from this, and away from that, guess what happens? You just get stuck in, and you get deeper, and you get deeper, and you get deeper, and it kills a part of you. Uh, for other things, anger or weakness. Weakness is a vice for a reason. It's these things, sort of build up in you. And what it does is it wrecks things that make you special. It wrecks your ability to be a unique God given creation. Satan's joy is to mar what God loves in us. And God cannot abide sin. The yeah, there's a lot to it. It's a deep subject. Like I don't think people really kind of get it like they should, because it's not just some sort of like, oh well, he's fine over there. It's like, no, if I fall and I become a degenerate sex-addled pervert, the things I write will promote degenerate sex acts and perversion, just like it did for Walter Breen and Marion Zimmer Bradley and David Brin and all the other guys who we rightfully accuse of being pedophiles and perverts. Robert Heinlein promotes promiscuous sexual behavior in The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. It's not just in A Stranger in a Strange Land. It's all over his works the second that he was given any sort of license. The same way with things like uh, Gnosticism or in Star Wars and stuff like that. The spirit is its own thing. Oh, you gotta worry about the spirit stuff. You can't be attached to the worldly goods. And the Sith are attached to the worldly goods, so they're evil. That sort of thing. I read the article. I need to reread it to make sure I understood it. Where there was, and we can sort of fight this out, but he accused Protestants, this article that Josh Young posted, of being Gnostics because they believed that our corrupted earthly flesh, which is the seat of our sin nature, even more so than the soul. The soul is corrupted by original sin. I'm not doubting that. But its outward portrayal is our worldly flesh, to the point where God says that new bodies will be given in certain verses. It is reasonable for those who fall asleep to believe that their bodies are not what directly goes to heaven. If somebody dies who is a Christian, if I fall over and have a heart attack right now, my body does not dissolve into a force ghost. It is left. My soul leaves the body. There is a bodily resurrection that is mentioned. However, I don't want to get into the end times. Uh, but that's the reason why Christians do not cremate their dead, while all pagan societies more or less cremate their dead. We believe in a bodily resurrection. However, my body is not what goes up into heaven. Now, the guy who was writing it honestly was a bit of a pearl clutcher and decided that, well, this is Gnosticism, this is an ancient heresy of the church. Well, first off, I don't think any of his students, except for like 3 of them, have ever heard of Gnosticism. And secondly, they were all expressing their hope in Christ Jesus that when they shove off this mortal coil, they will be in heaven with their Father. And to me, it was very disturbing. It's like this guy was going over people who are saying that when I die, I will be in heaven. I will leave this mortal body. I will leave this sinful earth, and I will be in heaven with God the Father, through Jesus Christ and so on. And, it's a problem because they didn't say it the right way. I hate that. I hate listening to that. But it's not the same sort of thing. It's a corruption of what could be. What should be is that he can do something with it, not run around screaming Gnosticism, Gnosticism. I didn't like it. I didn't like reading it. Just because it didn't feel like there was any sort of like kindness or understanding of what was actually going on here. The expression of hope in Christ Jesus is entirely precedented on the sacrifice of Christ, not something that may or may not be an ancient heresy that is entirely based on because they are saved, they will leave the body. What's your opinion on that, Anthony? I just, it's been sort of stuck in my craw.
So, you're gonna be pretty disappointed by this.
Yeah.
I did not read the article, and my immediate thought when I saw the title of it was, that sounds far-fetched.
Yep.
And
Fair.
the other problem that I have, and it's not really a problem, is that you can't say anything about Protestants full stop. Literally anything. Any one position on any subject is going to be bound to be held by at least one Protestant.
Yep.
Even the Anglicans still let to some of the church councils. So you can't even say, well, a Protestant rejects the councils. No, that's not necessarily true. So yeah, I mean, Josh had his own perspective.
Yeah.
This is, for people, Josh Young is an excellent author. Highly recommend.
Absolutely excellent.
For a while. Yeah, I've known him for a while, and I like Josh. So we mentioned him, but we've already mentioned him by name, so it's too late. But with that said, any criticism that we give is not a criticism of Josh. Who,
right.
by the way, is likely to be on my side with Ben's because we are both Catholic. But
Catholic, putting down the Protestant once again. Anyway.
Yes.
Just a
but
yes.
with that said, my immediate thought when I saw the article was that sounds far-fetched, number one, and number two, that sounds like too much of a generalization.
Right.
Now, I will say this, and it's going to be somewhat negative towards Protestants, but hopefully in a way that you can kind of get behind. So, I am very vague about my mysterious backstory, and I will remain so. However, I will say that I once read a textbook. This was for college that was written by a Protestant author. They're arguing about a view of the afterlife. Now, the view of the afterlife that was argued for by the Protestant author in this textbook. Remember, this was for college Protestants.
Yeah.
Whatever, right? Like Protestant college. He was arguing against a Catholic and a Universalist. Now, I agree with his arguments against Universalists, not Universalists. The Catholic, it's a little bit different because I didn't necessarily agree with everything that the Catholic wrote. I think people sometimes don't realize that there's actually a fair bit of variability in like what you need to believe as a Catholic on a lot of different subjects. I mean, some stuff, of course, is just defined, right? But
yes,
stuff like afterlife, there is actually a lot of, it's more like there are things that you are definitely not allowed to believe, more than things that you absolutely have to believe, So the idea of like are there a lot of people damned, or are there not that many people damned? Stuff like that.
Right.
It's a thing that just open to debate. This person took a very broad view of heaven. Now, my opinion on it is that I actually think it's a little bit unhealthy to dwell on such things.
Yes.
That we've got our marching orders, kind of.
Yep.
We've been told what we need to do, and our job is to try and do what we believe, even if we don't agree on exactly everything. What we believe is right to the best of our ability and trust in God. And if it means that a lot or a few people will be saved, we need to trust that God is just and God is merciful. So whatever it's going to be the right decision. Right? That's my view on it. I don't, it's a little bit of a cop. I don't think entirely. I think there's a practical edge to that, but it's not helping me to dwell on this stuff.
Right.
How many people are damned. But anyway, this is changing the subject a little bit. Going back to what he was arguing. He argued for an extremely strict view of who got into heaven. And the view that it was predicated entirely on people who expressed belief in Christ, that you needed to have the ability to do it, and if you did not, you 100% like you couldn't be saved. This was the argument.
Right.
Now, people who, that's, if you're a Protestant or of a certain type, I should specify again, because you can't really say anything about Protestants vaguely.
Get
You might be
wrecked.
nodding and going, yes, right. Yeah. And if you are a Catholic, you actually could just say, hey, yes, that sounds right. Like, that isn't actually, like, against Catholic teaching per se, specific. But somebody, he is pointed out, like, you go, wait a moment then. What does this mean for the mentally retarded and infants? He does not, and he addresses it only in passing. And what he says is, it sounds pretty mean, but like, you have to trust that God is merciful. And I hope that I'm wrong, kind of.
Yeah.
Like,
Which is kind of similar to what I say. You know, it's like, technically, by the rules, they have existed on this sinful earth, even in the womb. Therefore, by the most legalistic thing, you know, it's a bad thing. You know, which is all the more reason why abortion needs to be stopped. But it's also yeah. But it's also like, I'm just kind of like, you know, it's like one of those things. I hope it's different. This is what the legalism is. I'm hoping it's different, you know, sort of thing.
Right. Like, with that said, you know, the way that he argued for it seemed to indicate that any broader view whatsoever could absolutely positively was like against the will of God. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that. With that said, you got to be very careful. I had this discussion with Ken. There was an issue. Now, I know you don't agree with the baptismal theology. I don't care about arguing. I'm not intending to argue it, but think of it from the perspective of, if you think baptismal theology, like infant baptism is a thing, like, let's say you do think that, pretend for a moment. In arguendo, I think it's the term, right? There was an issue where a priest baptized infants with the wrong formula. Right? He used the wrong words of baptism. And then the church, like, it was kind of like a scandal. This was relatively recently, I want to say earlier this year, like late last year or something. A priest did this, and it came out that he had been using the wrong formula for like hundreds of baptisms. And there was a huge over this, where the church frantically like contacted people. The priest was kind of forcibly retired.
Yeah.
The church went around contacting everyone, like, going, you gotta get rebaptized, like, right now.
Right.
Like, right now. Yeah.
And to me,
now, on one hand, you know, hold on though, because I know what, like, I'm not arguing if this is the correct thing, but I'm going to make, there is a point here, I promise.
Sure.
On one hand, you know, Ken shared this when he goes, do Catholics actually believe that those people aren't going to be saved? And then Josh Young responded, so Josh again goes, no, Catholics don't think that, like, the intention is there, whatever. And I said, okay, so I'm going to slightly disagree with you. The point here is, if you think that baptism is a regenerative property and it's needed for salvation, and if you think that it needs to be done in a certain way, then the fact that it is not done that way is vitally important and does need to be addressed. Because
Yes.
isn't that, like, realistic? And I said, yes, but here's the thing. I am not saying that these people are definitely going to be damned. What I am saying is, we have a way that it is done.
Right.
And it was not done in that way. Since it was not done in that way, the guarantee is now gone.
Right.
Like, that is the point. The promise is no longer there. You could have hope. You could say, you know, that God can choose to save who he wants. But you have lost the guarantee that we previously at least thought, you know, assuming it's correct.
Right.
Thought that. And one thing to remember is that God can justly damn anyone.
Yes.
Like, there's no rule here where you go, well, that person, you know, that's not fair, they don't deserve it. No, that's not true. They do deserve it. You deserve it. I deserve it.
Yep. I know my own heart. 100%. I'm wicked as all get out. Like, you know.
Right. And this is both Catholic and Protestant. This is mere Christian teaching. said,
Yes.
right? That the fact is, how we are saved is due to things God told us we need to do, that we need to keep as part of. That's the promise. Side of that, we can only speculate. Now, we can have strong speculation. For example, if you really ask me, I would say no, I don't think God's going to people over like the equivalent of a verbal, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Like if somebody
But
dies, he's
no,
like,
I don't
"Oops,
actually.
someone else messed up. Sorry, dude."
Yeah, exactly. No, I wouldn't say that. But I 100% agree with the church's insistence that you get it done correctly.
Right.
Because what we have, the promises that were given, again, at least in theory. Now, I'm not arguing that it's necessarily correct. That's something maybe we could do with Catholic versus Protestant.
Yeah.
I suppose there's something there, but whatever. Like,
Right. Right.
at least in theory, like if you believe that it is necessary, that it's the normative way of doing things, you cannot. It is dangerous to make assumptions about how God will act.
Right. Even though I don't
That's
think much of like some of the
basic
stuff.
that you're, yeah, it's the same basic point you're making. It's like, do you think God will damn infants? So, I don't necessarily, like, I think he was being too, and I pushed back against some of what he said in some of my assignments. I didn't get a good grade, and I was actually, like, mad about it.
Right.
Because
Right.
in the class, because, like, he said something like, you're not addressing the points, and I remember, like, angrily posting the long responses I had given, going, are you fucking kidding me? But whatever. So, like, I think that he was going a little bit too far in like how sure he was of things, you know.
Right.
But at the same time, I do get the sentiment where you go, look, there are things that God has promised, and those are the only things that we actually know. And we only know them because God promised them.
Right.
Outside of that, in terms of what human beings deserve to happen, you cannot say that God is acting unjustly.
Right.
That's where you get to Romans 9, right? Who are you, Clay, to say to the potter, right?
Yes.
That's kind of what. So, to address what you were saying, I guess that's a roundabout way of going. Yeah, I think the Gnosticism claims. I'm sure that it does apply
Right.
in certain Protestant. Same sense that I'm sure there are also Unitarians out there. There are Protestants who literally believe anything under the sun, and heretical Catholics as well, for that matter. It's not even really, it would be a little bit unfair to give you a monopoly on it.
Right.
We have heretics too.
Yep.
But
Let's talk
that
about
said,
Savonarola. Let's.
I would need to research Savonarola. I actually know nothing about Savonarola.
In one of his sermons, he asked the Italians to please not have as much butt sex. Please, like in a legitimate sermon.
That's kind of the base.
I know, right? He's fantastic, but it's also like that he had to say something during Renaissance or medieval Europe. I forget exactly what years. Anyway,
He's a proto-Protestant.
yeah.
Uh, to Infogalactic. But whatever. Anyway, one last thing. So here's the last thing I think before we end the stream. I'm going to talk about a discussion that I had to say total subject change. Just because this is a stream where we talk about anything and I'm interested in discussing it. This is an argument I was having with some members of my family. So I insist on when I talk about, you have a problem with like homosexuality in film or literature or whatever, I insist on saying I have a problem with butt sex and with sodomy.
Mm.
And I insist on calling it that.
Right.
You go, no, that's not what it is. Just romance. I said, dude, like, I don't know how to make this more clear. What romance is, like, we need to be very clear about our terms. A romantic attraction means that you are attracted to somebody who you also want to have sex with.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is what romance is. That to say that you need to focus on that aspect of it, it is larger than that. But if you do not have that, it isn't romance.
Right.
Properly done in a film, if you have a romantic attraction, it's going to end with, in the best films, or the most moral anyway, it ends with some implication of eventual marriage, right?
Right.
Very least, exclusivity, even nowadays, is generally assumed.
Yes.
Yeah. Outside of that, though, it's like, so why do you have a problem with gay relationships? The answer is, I do not have a problem with gay relationships. I have a problem with people who put their penis in another man's butt. And
Right.
it's like, why are you being so crude? Like, because that's what we're discussing.
Yep.
Like, trying to avoid it. But that is what we're discussing. Say what you mean.
Yep. And that's important. Like the more we say what we mean, the more we pin them to the post. Like the reason why the
Exactly.
lobbies got as far as they did is because nobody wanted to really talk about it. You know, they wanted to say gay marriage. Well, no, it was a legitimization of sodomy. That's what was going
Right.
on.
Exactly. It's like, okay, so to be clear here, what you want to do is give legal recognition to a relationship where a man masturbates himself with another man's butt cheeks.
Mm.
And then you go, does that sound disgusting to you? It does, doesn't it?
Right.
It's pretty gross.
Right.
Why
And
does
then
this need
people are
legal
like,
recognition?
do heterosexual relationships? Yeah, absolutely. Hookup culture
I
is.
would, and there's a substantial difference with it. Like there are many substantial differences, and I would talk about it in that
Yep.
way. I won't give legitimacy to a relationship where, yes, you have actual sexual intercourse, right?
Right.
A penis goes inside of a woman's vagina. The parts that were made for what they do that way. I do not want a man's penis to be masturbated by butt cheeks and have that recognized by the government as some sort of sacred relationship.
Right.
That's just your masturbation.
And they forced it on us too. So it's like, no,
Yeah.
it's not just live and let live.
Yeah, and it's very like, it is gross, but that's the thing. Like, it's gross and it's uncomfortable to talk about, but that's the whole point. That's
Yep.
why you have to do it. Like gay families who adopt children, you're not having children.
Right.
You're buying children.
Yep.
You are buying children, and you are keeping them from a home with a mother and a father. And that is what's happening. There is no such thing as a home for an adopted child where like there is no mother or father home. That's ridiculous. Adoption lines are incredibly long.
Yep.
Children are incredibly in demand. Like,
Yep.
that's not what's going on. That's a lie. That's the lie. What you are actually doing is preventing a child from growing up in a two-family home. And if the issue is that the adoption process is too difficult, then change the adoption process. Which I actually would be in favor of, by the way.
Mm.
My understanding in the process that there's way too much red tape involved. Which, on one hand, I understand, because it's very serious and you pick the right people, but on the other hand, like, these are children who are growing up in horrendous environments.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like
And
even American Dad lambasted it, where like it's about Greg and Terry's life having adopted a Russian kid, and not, you know, about the success of the kid which they adopted from Russia. Like I know a lot of Christian families who are adopting children. It is absolutely insane the amount of hoops they have to go through. It is designed to promote, homosexuals having, buying children, and all this other stuff. The surrogacy system's messed up. There's just 1,000 little things running
is.
around.
It's horrendous.
It absolutely is. And the thing is that like going over this stuff, like if we are to keep ourselves morally pure and perform as men in this society, as much as I want to go crazy as a mad prophet, it's just about making sure that when people bring it up, you hit them back. Like it may sound kind of autistic, like rude, but it's like no, punch back. they only win because they think they're correct. Like I had some people, coworkers, talk about, well, I never had kids. Oh, are you happy? Yeah, a single women without children are the happiest demographic. I'm like, no, it's married Christian mothers. I didn't even quote anything. I just probably made it up. But do you think I'm not going to say, no, your sinful lifestyle where you live with a man who isn't your husband and deliberately chose to deny yourself as a woman? And honestly, it was because, she probably didn't find anyone worth a damn, but that's its own thing. People who work in restaurants are mostly effed up. Like, yeah, you work for tips. You don't actually have a degree. You made different choices. You probably made bad choices. And I'm including that with myself. Like punching back. And you want to do it respectfully mostly. But sometimes you just want to punch back and you have to punch back. If somebody shows up and says, well, this, uh, it doesn't really create any value for them. If they say, well, the most successful household is this, and it's not a Christian family, just say no. The most successful household is a two-parent household with a mother and a father who are not abusive.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that you absolutely need to have the reason that I insist on the language that I do is that you need to ask somebody like what's the debate about, and then go, okay, so I have a question for you. Why should the government give special recognition and legal benefits to women who claim that who rub their genitalia on each other?
Yep.
What about that makes the special legal benefits? Explain it to me. And then you have to stand your ground.
Yep.
Stand your ground on it. Go, no, you tell me you are in favor of gay marriage. So marriage, in this case, what you are asking for is for the government to give special legal recognition and benefits to a relationship between two people who have decided that they want to use each other to mutually masturbate.
Yep. And this
Why is that worthy of benefits?
and this goes beyond like sexual stuff. It's like the current Russian Ukrainian thing. Well, Russia's losing. No, Russia took the parts that they said were their goal and are now retreating back to them to defend their taken territory. Like, it's just because they didn't take the capital city like some sort of blitzkrieg, because Putler
Yeah,
is
they
a
never said
saying.
they want
Right, they never said they want to. They never doubted that Ukraine deserves to exist. They said that it was a Soviet creation and that Donetsk and Luhansk and Crimea and so on want to be Russian because they're Russian people and we're going to have fair elections. Now, as a counterpoint, do I believe, even for 1 minute, that they're going to have fair elections? No. It's still Russia. It's KGB all the way down. Don't even worry about it. But the thing is that they haven't lost a war. They've taken all the areas they said that they were going to take, and they're retreating back to them to reinforce them. They basically shoved the Ukrainian army into a bunch of little pockets, shoved what they could out, and then shoved their army back to Kiev, and then retreated back. Like, it's smart. It's not getting involved. Like, there's even reports of the Ukrainians shelling their own people because the Russians won't shell them. Like, there's all kinds of crazy stuff. A lot of people have been like, well, I prayed for the Ukraine in my church, and this guy prayed for Russia. How dare he? I think that your prayer wasn't godly. His prayer wasn't really godly either. But if you go, oh, I believe the propaganda, oh Lord, save them from what I've heard from the propaganda, I don't think he'll answer that prayer. I think he might even be offended about it because you're just praying to him about lies that are obvious lies. Like, it's the same way with, if somebody prayed, oh Lord, make gay marriage legal and everyone love it. Like, that's offensive to him. Like, he hates that stuff. He has explicitly said it in Old and New Testament that it is abhorrent to him. Uh, like, it's very frustrating. So you have to face it. Like, I have a pastor. who did a bunch of stuff with Ukrainians. He went on some mission trips. I understand why he's soft-hearted before towards them. He has more reason to be soft-hearted towards them than anyone else in the church. But even then, I still went up to him and said, "Listen, I'm worried about all these propaganda and all these lies." By the way, we've suddenly got 2 concurrent viewers. Welcome, welcome. Uh, it's I'm not interested in it. Just today, the New York Times posted an article that said the ghost of Kiev was a fake, that he didn't exist, that he never existed, he never shot down. And honestly, a burden off my heart left, because it means that people are finally admitting that the lies are the lies, that Satan himself, through his propaganda arm, has to say, yeah, the ghost of Kiev never existed. But he was important because he was propaganda. It's like, oh my goodness. Same way with the Azov neo-Nazis. Well, yes, they are neo-Nazis, but it's not that bad. Again, push back, push back, push back. Show them that Christians aren't afraid to speak truth. The reason why the pagans got as big as they did is because, one, the internet allows you to create your own communities, and two, Christians gave up. Not us, not superversives, not these here and there, you know. But yeah. Um, Same way with like Protestants and sort of people becoming Catholic. A lot of the things that made Protestants special is no longer promoted in high church Protestantism. Not low church, because low church is its own animal. But Anglicans and Anglicanism and Lutherans and whatnot, it's like, well, they go from here to here. Well, guess what? Lutherans and Anglicans are debased. They are absolutely wrecked. I know personally a homosexual who is one of the chief magistrates of the Lutheran child ministries. I know him. He dated my sister, and he blamed my sister for turning him gay because she wasn't affectionate enough to him for him, and it ruined her for a lot of relationships. There were other things going on. It wasn't just him, but he was part of it, right? You cannot have a godly church with scumbags like that inside your ministry leadership. And I can't even imagine what the Anglicans like, because I can certainly believe it's worse. So it doesn't surprise me at all when high church Protestants turn Catholic. It's one of those places where you have men like Viganio and others who are absolutely Chad-based, red-pilled guys, who are fighting for Christ and all that jazz. Or at least that's what it appears to be. That's what it appears to be. Hell, I even saw an article that said that Pope Francis was more based than the news articles were saying. Do I believe it? No, he's still the Antichrist. But I'm kidding.
Vegano is an interesting one. So I think of Vegano a lot like I think of Voxel. He's an important voice. I appreciate his existence. I think he does good work, but he's also wrong about us all.
Sure.
He is right.
Yeah, I'm not saying that these guys are perfect. Like, asking for perfection just isn't going to happen.
So, if you don't know the full story of Vegano, the real reason Vegano is a hero is because he is the person who blew the lid on the Carrick scandal. Francis first convicted, and then Francis moved him around, and Vegano was like a part of it, and then he came out and he said, no, or not a part of it. He wasn't the person who was moving, but he stayed silent. And then he eventually, courageously came out and said, no, I can't do this. I'm not doing it anymore. It's not right. I'm exposing this.
Right.
And God bless him. Seriously, God bless him. He did.
Yeah. No, it's important to have men like that.
Yeah. No matter what he does or says, I 100% won't even say it. I won't say that word about Vegano. That's
right.
Heroic is going against the grain, going against the people in power, going against everything that you stand for, and then saying that, no, I refuse no further. It's not going to be because of
Here I
And
stand, I can do no other. Yes. Yes.
you're right. You know that here is a story for you. Here's a little preview of our resolution talk.
Yes, lay it on me.
There was a group of nuns, a group of nuns in Germany who there was a harrowing story. It was actually fascinating though, where they were trying to get them to shut down the nunnery, and the head of the nunnery refused. So they brought in like their mothers along with a group of men, basically to the nunnery, forcibly dragged out three of the young women, and forced them to leave the nunnery. And when they asked one of the women if she would leave, she refused and quoted Luther.
Nice. I like it.
She said, no, here I stand, I can do no other. And presumably because they were Lutherans who were doing this, and she was trying to like make a rhetorical point.
Yeah.
Which I think is a clever idea. It's an interesting and harrowing story.
Yes.
I mean, don't get me wrong. You know, like if you're looking for horror stories, and obviously you can find it on all sides. I just found it funny that you use that.
Yeah.
Quote, and it's like, oh, yeah, use that. It's a good quote. Luther didn't actually say it, but whoever wrote it.
I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like there's so much stuff with it. Is that I don't care. Yeah, you know, he was certainly.
Like, fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. He didn't say it, but in the speech where he supposedly said it, he gets across the general idea very strongly.
Right. And honestly, like, rhetoric is kind of more important than a weird scholarly dissertation that most dudes won't understand anyway.
If you read the actual speech, the speech is essentially like that idea, except he doesn't use that exact word. And those words were attached later. At the end of the little speech, he gives like a speech. He gives just look, you know, I can't remember it word for word, but I believe that the Bible is the highest authority. I honestly believe that. I cannot deny it. It is what I think is the truth. You know, and that's where I'm going to have to stop. And then somebody else added, like, you know, they said. And then he said, "Here I stand, like you know whatever."
Right.
And yeah, he said basic that.
His teleprompter was on, you know.
Yeah.
He had a good speech writer who just popped in there, you know. It doesn't like it's one of those things where like I think with historical figures, you know, there's a certain amount of truth to it, and as long as like the exaggeration is within the quote unquote like truth of the matter, it's perfectly reasonable. You know, it's like one of those things where I'm not going to be autistic about it.
You know, again, that line was associated with Luther, like, at the time.
Yes.
It wasn't some showed up, like, you know, 500 years later.
Right.
Something. Like, people knew, you know, like, it was a Luther line, supposedly.
Supposedly.
Again, like, in Germany quoted him. And, like, the whole point was presumably to make a rhetorical point that, like, you know, kind of open them up to your being hypocritical.
Yes.
Right, was the idea.
Right. These were not good men doing this stuff. It's like, you know, well they just told me to do it. Oh, well, that's too bad. You know, you can tell your master in hell or something like that. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's
By the way, that story having that story had sad ending. Women all put out there eventually married. They always spoke fondly of the nunnery. The nunnery sputtered on for a few more years and eventually died out. So
yeah. Which they do. Like sometimes it's just natural.
Which they do, yeah. That's true. That just happens. But with that said, you know, if you're, I'm not using a one-off story about a town in Germany as a commentary on the Protestant Reformation in and of itself.
It was a good story. I don't know. I was fine with it. I didn't feel anything.
Yeah, what I mean is, I'm not going to go like, and this proves that the Catholics were right at the end. Yeah.
It's like, have fun with that. It's like, welcome to the, you know, welcome to Vietnam, except it's Protestantism. Welcome to the Southern Baptist Convention, gentlemen. I won't, you know, mince words with you. Not everyone's coming out of here alive. We're just here to debate theology. Listen, Greenhorn. Listen good. With that attitude, you won't last 5 minutes.
We're just here to debate theology. Looks him get out. He's just like, and then he starts laughing. Nobody else is laughing. What? Get out of here. There's the door.
Right. It's like you don't have the right attitude here. You'll jeopardize the entire team.
Anybody else just here to debate theology? That's what I thought. Spiritual war.
Yeah.
I actually am looking forward to the Reformation discussion with that.
I'm almost gonna suggest us do 2 weeks of it, pre-Reformation and post-Reformation.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I'm planning on having like this time notes in front of me.
Oh, I'm gonna have a straight up PowerPoint presentation.
Feel free. I think that the technology would be too obnoxious to set up on my end.
You'd have to send it to me and tell me when you're moving forward to the next point. But yeah, no, it's
Yeah, I'll just have notes.
I
If
guess.
anybody wants a copy of them in the chat or something.
I'm not gonna have notes. I'm just gonna have PowerPoints because I like my slide wipes lefts.
I'm hoping so.
Checkerboard wipe.
Again, this is a teaser for a couple weeks now. Okay, I'm hoping that with these discussions, which again I want to emphasize, and I am still very clear on, these are not debates. We allow the other person without interruption, and then we take questions. And the goal is for at least a little bit of, first is to give other people an idea of, the alternate perspectives on display on hopefully this same event. I hope that we're not too far off on them. And
yeah. Without the memes.
I think there's an acute angle here where I'm not obviously expecting to convince you of anything, which would both be absurd and even really be a fair way to go about this, but I do hope that there's a point where we could hear what I say and go, okay, yeah, I can understand why you that, and then I would say the same thing.
And you'd be surprised.
Okay, yes.
You'd be surprised how much I just go, yeah, that sounds about right. But also, it's like one of those things where I'm also very careful with my own theology as well. I don't believe that the Catholics were the villains of everything. I just believe that certain times and certain ways, things got corrupted and things got bad. That I think that's perfectly reasonable. I, believe that XYZ, that, corruption caused this issue, which necessitated the birth of the Protestant churches. That doesn't mean I believe that, Catholics are unsaved by definition. Some Protestants do believe that because it's like, some events have happened in my own life where it's like, what gives you salvation? Oh, my works. Then I start foaming at the mouth. And it's like, and it's like, no, it's, even Catholics will be like, you're supposed to do, but it is the faith, it's the faith, sort of thing.
One day we'll have to, I'm on the Solo Fide, and that's actually something that I have a lot of hope on that comes to something close to a general consensus.
Yep.
But that's,
But it's still good to talk about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of misunderstandings on all sides.
Yep.
Everybody got very suspicious. Yeah.
If you're not using the right words.
Yeah, some people using the wrong words, but they're using the same ideas, and there's a lot of things going on. Some Protestants read 500-year-old war propaganda and take it literally today. It goes and again, to be fair, it does go the other way. Again, it's difficult to say with Protestants. For example, I could say something like, well, no Protestant would believe that if you just, you're saved and then you don't need to do anything. Well, I could say that, but it's not actually true that no Protestant would believe it.
Right. There are Protestants who believe it. Yeah.
Now, I would say, right, but I would say that it's unfair to say that all Protestants believe it, because that is not true. Right?
Right.
And certainly the most reasonable and intelligent Protestants I have spoken to, and this includes Calvinists, Protestants, who's more of like an evangelical, right, maybe like Ben, would not say that you just don't need to do that. Like you don't need to act like a Christian, right?
Right. Like, and
They
it's...
would with that, but
Mm.
that position isn't non-existent either.
Right. Like, it's a complicated thing.
It's a little bit.
If I were to go like, well, sola fides, but it's like I don't actually mean just sola fides, because there's like sola fides with you and God, but then there's sola fides with you before other men. And it's like, is it if you before other men and you're a rapacious serial killer? Well, I don't think you're saved, buddy. The fruits aren't there. But at the same time, a Catholic who fully, goes for the uh, what's the word I want? Uh,
Works-based
works based, but has the faith of, this is what Christ intends for me because he died on the cross. Like, I could see that person being saved because the focus is on Christ and his sacrifice. If I am to be like Christ, I must do these good deeds for my, this. Now, keep in mind, are they on an absolute tightrope that I think is quite dangerous? Yes. I think, there's some really bad stuff going on in there that they have to be careful about. But that doesn't justify their the potential, if you get me.
Yes. So yeah, and here's a story of the behind the scenes. So I want to say, like, it was 2 days ago now. We were talking about the English Reformation in chat, and I bring this up because we have a section of our Superversive Discord that was created called the Thunder Dome, where we get to yell at each other. And like Ben and I were going back and forth, like pretty gloves off, I guess.
Yes.
I would put it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So I bring this up to say that, like, to be 100% clear here, at the end of that conversation and today, my thoughts back on it were, I was not even. Oh, how about this? I was not even remotely. I was not mad at Ben or anybody involved in the discussion. We were, Ben and I are good enough friends at this point, and also I think kind of trusting each other to, like,
Right.
we can have these sorts of
Arguments.
where we don't, the other person is necessarily lying, acting in bad faith, that they are trying to get one over on us, or that we can't talk about it. Like, yeah, there are things I disagree strongly on, but it's one of those things where I say that, and I'm very insistent on it. And sometimes you'll see more big Catholics and Protestants. Catholics won't go like, no, I don't think there's any chance that the Catholic Church is wrong. I think that's a bad attitude, and I think that attitude, for that matter, for certain Protestants as well. Though I hear it more among Catholics, maybe because I interact with them, where it's like, no, I'm 100% sure of it. Like, the Catholic Church can't be wrong. I'm like, well, I don't think that's healthy, because I am not infallible, right? Like, even making judgments on things that I would say, the Pope made or the Council made an infallible statement, my judgment can 100% be wrong. But that's no excuse not to make my stance, right?
Right.
Like, it would be cowardice then to say that I'm just going to be agnostic and not make a decision. You make the decision based on the knowledge that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you always have this question in the back of your mind. Like, I grew up as a Catholic. If I grew up in the Deep South, if I grew up somewhere else, would I be Catholic? Well, that's a hypothetical. I don't know. I have no idea. I could not tell you. Right?
Right.
It's something I literally can't prove. Could I be wrong? Of course I could be wrong.
Yep.
I'm not a perfect person. Very, very intelligent people disagree on these issues. Like, it is not something that is so obvious that no intelligent men can disagree. That is just a fact. That's not an opinion at this point. Like, there are people who I know for a fact are very smart, who have looked into this, who have thought about it, and who have come to different opinions than me. The flip side is there are people who have done things, and who have come to the same conclusions that I have. that in itself is not a reason to be or not to be Catholic or Protestant. You have to judge things
Mm-hmm.
for yourself. You have to take a side. But there is a triumphalism that I think can get a little bit problematic in terms of discussion. Right? Like,
Right.
where you go, so is there any chance that the Catholic Church can be wrong? Absolutely. There is a chance. There is a chance that the Catholic Church could be wrong, and it should be orthodox. I don't think that is a thing that's totally unreasonable. There is a chance that Martin Luther was right. I misunderstood the arguments. And
Mm-hmm.
with my limited human wisdom, because that's what I am. Alternatively, I hope Ben would say something like the same thing.
Yeah.
There is a chance that he misunderstood and that he should be Catholic. But the point is that we're doing what we can, right? Like, we're trying
Right.
to come to the right conclusions.
And we've
I
already.
hope something like the C.S. Lewis. Yeah, C.S. Lewis's Man Rat, right? Once you start asking, but do I need to do this to be saved? You're asking the wrong question. Right? Do you know the
Yes.
essay? Ben, it's an essay.
Oh no, I believe that wholeheartedly. Just without, just hearing about it. It's like, if you're doing something and it's like, is this something necessary for salvation? It's wrong. You are in the wrong sort of. You're not where you need to be, and
C.S. Lewis has a brilliant essay called Man or Rabbit, which I recommend, where they ask him, like, do you think non-Christians can be saved? Lewis's response is, so I would say, like, is Socrates saved or whatever? He go, I would say, like, basically it's possible. He goes, but I think that the people who are asking this question are asking the wrong question. The very fact that they're asking this question tells me that they're probably not part of that group. He said the Man or Rabbit because you need to be a man. You need to take a stand. You can't be a scared rabbit who runs away from tough conclusions, right?
yep. Like, if
Ultimately,
speaking of tough conclusions, it's like one of the toughest conclusions out there is that the infants who were aborted might be damned. Like, straight up, that might be a conclusion that people have to face with this stuff.
Yeah, and for that matter, that's not something that even a Catholic can necessarily disagree with. This is like if you ask the official Catholic teaching, it is entrusted to the mercy of God, which is a poetic way of saying we don't know.
Yep.
And it's like it's a very difficult thing to say, but if
Yep.
you really believe that God is merciful, and you really believe that God is just, and you really trust in God, then you have to trust that He is making the right decision, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
Because we are not Him. And that's, I guess, we'll end it here, 8:45. Went a little bit longer than I even intended to go, which I guess is fine, right?
Yep. We started talking.
But yeah, that's the thing. Man or Rabbit. C.S. Lewis's Man or Rabbit. Great essay. I recommend it. That's more or less my attitude on the subject. It's like, a person like Ben, who I know for a fact is not avoiding the discussions and not avoiding the arguments and staking a position, I think is in less danger than somebody who wakes up and then says, I don't know, I just go to church because it's where my parents went. Yeah.
Right. No, they're almost guaranteed. Like, it's like one of those things. It's like, I hope they're not unsaved, but I'm not going to consider them saved. Like, it's I'm not going to treat them like a Christian brother in the same way that I treat, like, other people.
I mean, those sorts of people are probably going to fall away, frankly.
Yes. It's surprising they've lasted this long in this culture.
Yeah. Anything else to add, Ben?
No. Like I said, we've established it. Next week, I will be off doing something else, and we'll be establishing something for Anthony. Then the week after that is Reformation 1, and maybe even Reformation 2 the next week, depending on how it goes, because it is a very complicated subject. Even though it sounds simple, like Martin Luther did this, and went here, and the German princes wanted to be their own thing. No, it's actually quite complicated because there's a lot of
complicated, but it is legitimately interesting.
It is not boring, unlike some of the other stuff. Like the gag is that I've mentioned the Holy Roman Empire. Now, as punishment, I must explain the Holy Roman Empire. It's like it's just like, yeah, congratulations, you mentioned the Holy Roman Empire. Uh, you know, that's it. That's all we got. We're done. Please,
Yep.
go home. Unless you wanna talk about it. And no, we don't want to talk about it either, but we're gonna have to. All right. Thank you all
Uh,
for.
yeah.
Yeah.
I said yeah. No, no argument.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. I should be feeling better in next week or something. Though pray for my family if you could, I would appreciate it. Have a good night.